49ers Minicamp is a wrap. Notes from Minicamp, highlights from Minicamp. What do we expect now as we head toward training camp is the next stop for those San Francisco 49ers coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers, and we really appreciate it when you hit that subscribe button, the notification on YouTube, the thumbs up if you're enjoying the show. And of course, you can subscribe everywhere you are listening to this podcast. Minicamp is a wrap. I think there's some things that we can take from Minicamp, even though the pads are not on. I want to talk a little bit more about the new kickoff rules and how those could impact things and how different teams around the NFL are treating the kickoff rules, Croc, because there's some interesting things happening around the league. Non-kickers kicking the ball. Is it going to be big guys or small guys involved in both blocking and covering those kicks? I think it's something that could be like big plays all over the place, a game changer potentially, or will everybody decide, it's only a few extra yards, let's just kick it over everybody's heads again like we used to do anyway with the old kickoff. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but let's get into minicamp, what we heard from the 49ers on the practice field this week, and all eyes on the new players usually. And look, I wasn't at minicamp. I'm going by reports, but I think all reports on the 49ers rookies were really solid, Croc. And I think next week we need to do a podcast where we talk about potential breakout candidates. And I think year two guys have an opportunity to make a much bigger impact than they did as rookies. And we talked about that on yesterday's show, Croc. But I think the rookie class in the 49ers had an older rookie class, which means they're probably looking like they're a little bit more ready to play. And I think that's what most of the reports were out of training camp. And starting with the earlier draft picks like Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, Dominick Puni, a little bit harder to tell with guys like offensive linemen and running backs just because the pads aren't on. But if you focus on the first two picks, and there's a lot of reps in camps like this with 1-on-1s and 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, and you see DBs and wide receivers going up against each other. And I think the reviews were really good on both Ricky Pearsall and Renardo Green. Even the reps they had against each other seemed to be pretty even, and there were good reports both ways and competitive reps. So it's really good to hear that the rookie class, at least, like, you never want to hear like the guy can't stay on his feet, right? Like AJ Green, or AJ, not AJ Green. It'd be nice. It would be nice if the 49ers had AJ Green. AJ Jenkins, like not being able to stand up and complete a route, or if someone's like injured all the time, not there. Back in the day, there was like contract holdouts and guys couldn't even show up to camp. So all reports really good on Ricky Pearsall and Renardo Green, and the reports from eyes at camp and eyes on the field were that it matched up with the scouting reports on those two players, which is all very good things at this point, which is all we have to go on is those OTAs and minicamp practices.
I think that is really tremendous, right? You draft guys, you don't want those bad reports. You don't want the reports that something is quite off or they need to go to training into their offseason work, their summer workouts. Like, okay, it needs to work on this, or it needs to change the throwing motion, or, those weren't the things that you it needs to get a little bit stronger. And I know a lot of people don't care to hear Grant Cohn's analysis on players, but a lot of times it's very black and white, and it's kind of matter of fact or straight to the point. And he'll say something like needs to be stronger or can't catch over the middle. Those weren't things that were coming out, whether it was from Grant, Mayoko, Barrows, any of the guys that are out there and on the field. So I think when you're looking at this class, how much do you expect from them? Guys that are going into a team that was, plays away from potentially winning a Super Bowl. And now you have to step in. What is your role going to be? It sounds like it's two guys that may be working towards, at the very least this year, having a very specific role for them.
The Venn diagram, right, of when you have two different takes when it comes to football and it comes to sports, and you have the Venn diagram, which is the graph with two big circles, right? And where the circles overlap, it's like what's happening in the middle of that circle. Because even let's say one of the great rivalries of all time in sports history right now is happening, and we get a chance to see this every single day with Lombardi versus Cone, right? And you get the Venn diagram. So if they overlap, then you know that's the truth, right? And so that's where you could really know that the truth is out there and something has happened. Tongue in cheek saying that both guys, friends of the show, no horse in that race. It's I just enjoy watching those guys go at each other. It's kind of fun. Much like Ricky Pearsall and Renardo Green, right? But like overall, I think the rookie class is gonna look. There's not a lot of opportunity for rookies to play, right? Like what rookie? If you had to pick a rookie from 2024 that's going to have the most snaps, who would that be?
I gotta say Ricky Pearsall, and I don't think it's going to be necessarily close, and not because he's the first round pick, but it's just when you look at the receiver room, I feel like they're going to figure out ways to involve him. But other guys like cornerback, I continue to hear about Isaac Udom and just how well he's doing. There was one practice where heard he wasn't covering extremely well, but aside from that, all the reports coming out with Isaac Udom have been good. So when you look at the 49ers cornerback unit, sounds like they're going to have to find a role for Renardo Green as opposed to that role is already there for him. You look at the safeties, maybe Mustafa, you can see if he can kind of work his way in with Talanoa Funga kind of up in the air, what he's going to be or when he's going to return. But I think the receiver, because you need so many of them on the field at one time, 3-4 receivers, I think Ricky Pearsall has probably the best chance to get the most amount of reps. And even then, I don't think it's going to be as much as it'll be like next year after you lose a receiver or two.
Right. Even for Pearsall and all these guys, there's going to have to be they're first of all going to have to be very ready, and the coaching staff is confident that they can plug them in to whatever role it is. But probably there's going to have to be an injury, right? Like there's going to have to be an injury at guard for Dominick Puni to start a bunch of games as a rookie. There's going to have to be an injury at wide receiver for a rookie wide receiver like Ricky Pearsall. And I mean, Jacob Cowing, the 4th round rookie, right? A lot of times 4th round rookie, 4.3 speed. You hope he's going to be involved. Like how many targets are going to be out there for these guys? Maybe 30 targets for Ricky Pearsall if there's no injuries, and 10 targets for Jacob Cowing. Like most people will probably listen to this thinking like, oh my God, that's nothing. That is no production from your rookie class. But the wide receiver room is really stacked right now for the 49ers, which is a very good thing. And look, Deebo Samuel is going to miss 2 games. Brandon Ayuk, who knows? Maybe he's not even signed in week 1 to come into camp. Maybe he's holding out, and Ricky Pearsall starting at the X wide receiver spot to start the year, right? So anybody goes down, Ricky Pearsall is immediately thrust into a pretty major role. So I'd probably say Pearsall, even though I think there might be a better path for someone like Malik Mustafa, but I just don't think there's a plan for any of these rookies to play much at all, even though they all could be very good depth pieces for the 49ers. And in case of injury, might play a huge role for the 49ers. But, week 1 without injury, no rookies are going to start. No rookies are going to play a lot.
You started throwing around target share numbers, and you said, hey, there might only be about 30 targets for your first round receiver that you took. There might only be 10 or so targets for, the 4th round receiver that you took with Cowan. How many targets do you think Trent Taylor, this is just to say how far the 49ers have come. How many targets do you think Trent Taylor had his rookie year?
Oh,
5th round pick.
He was basically the early version of what Juwan Jennings has become with like that 3rd down guy, the wide receiver 3 in the slot who gets open on 3rd downs and makes plays. Like that's what Trent Taylor was doing back then. Like that's a Kyle Shanahan thing, right? Watch out for that slot receiver on 3rd downs. Rookie year targets. I'll say 43.
He had 43 catches.
Oh, 43 catches. Wow. Okay. Little old rookie Trent Taylor. Like obviously the cupboard was pretty bare at wide receiver. I always tell the story about my days at Pro Football Focus, and I was charting routes in the 2016 season, so the year before Kyle Shanahan showed up, the Chip Kelly year. And I was like charting routes for Pro Football Focus, and I was requesting 49ers games at the beginning of the year. Like, I'm going to chart the 49ers route. I enjoy watching the 49ers already. That's my team. I cover that team. I didn't really cover them like I do now then. But I was like, I want the 49ers games, right? And then, deep into the season, I started requesting to not have the 49ers because I didn't want to see that crap anymore. I didn't want to see mesh concept over and over again, crossers with awful receivers. It was just a bad look, and I didn't want to watch it anymore. So the 49ers were starting over in a lot of ways, and that was a bad wide receiver room to start. So, there was a lot more targets available for a rookie in 2017 than there is in 2024. And thank God there is. It's a much more fun team to watch now than it was when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch showed up. So good job, guys, building something that's very watchable and very competitive now. And it was not then.
By the way, 60 targets for
rookie Trent Taylor, 6th round pick out of Louisiana Tech at the time.
5th round, right? 5th?
He might have been a 5th. I thought he was 6th for some reason. 5th.
He might have been same as
Kittle was 5th. Did they have a couple of 5th round picks that year?
Oh, let me see.
All right, you look that up. Next, I want to talk a little bit more about what is going to happen with the San Francisco 49ers rookie class. What can we expect from some of the breakout players potentially on the 49ers roster? And I want to talk about the new kickoff rules and something I'm seeing really interesting, not just with the 49ers, but around the NFL and how this could impact NFL football games. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
All right, so the results are in.
All right.
Trent Taylor was drafted with the 177th pick in the 2017 NFL draft, which happens to be the 5th round. And he was drafted about 30 picks after George Kittle. So George Kittle taken pretty much at the beginning of the 5th round.
Yeah. Trent
Taylor towards the end. But one thing about Trent Taylor, and I do remember this in the moment, but Trent Taylor's last 2 years at Louisiana Tech, his junior year, 99 catches, 1,282 yards. His senior year, 136 receptions, 1,803 yards, 12 touchdowns.
That's
very
crazy.
Productive. Very productive.
Yeah. And ran into a lot of injuries in the NFL too, which is something that happens when you're a smaller slot receiver, catching a lot of passes and getting hit by linebackers. You know, that's something that's going to happen. And maybe that's why the 49ers have leaned more to the big, like they've gotten bigger in the slot. Like they have other receivers in the slot that are smaller and quicker too. But Juwan Jennings is a very different guy than Trent Taylor, even though they played a similar role, especially that third down, let's go 3 wide and target the slot role on third downs.
And I think that's what we were expecting from Jalen Hurd, right? A guy to be a really big jumbo slot receiver. I wonder how his philosophy changed, because I don't think it's a coincidence that you go from having a little tiny slot receiver, and his game is predicated on quickness, short area quickness, getting open right now, catching those slants on third downs. Trent Taylor was terrific for Jimmy Garoppolo in Trent's rookie year, but you go from that to potentially having Jalen Hurd, obviously got hurt, and then having a guy like Juwan Jennings kind of hold it down for the last few years. And because Kendrick Bourne, he was more outside than slot a lot of times. They went away from the jittery small guy, right? Like you would have thought Richie James would have fit very well, but it was almost like, nah, that's not what we're really looking for.
There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and there's been a lot of receivers that have been hugely successful that aren't the biggest in the slot. But I do think it's kind of like a running back, right? Where it's like if you're going to get hit a lot, you're going to get hit like big guys. Ideally, you have a little bit more mass behind you, and you're able to handle those hits. But as we've seen in the NFL, no matter if you're big or small, you get hit a lot by big dudes. You're going to get injured, and so that's kind of like I don't know if, and that's when you look at guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had a huge contract, and we've seen it with Cooper Kupp. We saw Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua got hurt in his rookie season. It's like you can't get 130 targets over the middle of the field and stay healthy year after year. It's probably not something that's going to happen, right? And that's why I think Brandon Ayuk's agent might be correct when he says, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown, awesome player, but my guy's targets are more valuable than that guy's targets. And I'll buy that, right? Because you're less likely to get hurt. The further you are away from the football, the more difficult those catches, throws, everything is going to be. Just a higher level of difficulty all around. And that means those receptions are more valuable. There was a study about running back targets out of the backfield and how much more valuable wide receiver targets were as a whole versus running back targets. So if you saw a running back that had, say 50 catches in a year and a wide receiver that had 50 catches in a year, those wide receiver targets on average were much more valuable than the running back targets. Because a lot of times the running back targets were just, check down stuff. But Kyle Shanahan's offense, as we know, Croc, it doesn't feature the check down. I think that's if you're talking to somebody that's like downplaying Brock Purdy or whatever, and they're talking about, check down quarterback, I think that's one of the first ways is like, does this guy know ball? Because the Niners don't feature the check down. It's aggressively intermediate. It might not be big downfield throws a lot, but it's not a check down offense. Brock Purdy, not a check down quarterback. I don't even know how we got to this conversation, but
similar to Tom Brady, right? A lot of people, he wasn't known, and I think Tom Brady had a big arm for the most part, but he wasn't known for just airing it out outside of like the Randy Moss year, but he was really quick to get the ball out of his hands. And I think that is the 49ers offense: timing, rhythm, and aggressively intermediate.
In the chat, Golden Dragon number 5 says he had some disparaging things to say, but I'm going to bring this up because this is where it started. Dominick Puni is scheduled to start week 1 for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know where you saw that schedule, but he is not taking those reps at OTAs or minicamp. He's just not. So maybe he ends up starting games, but that's wishful thinking. You're hoping your rookie's going to show up and start, but he's not taking those reps. He's behind guys on the depth chart currently. Will he beat those guys out? I don't know. We'll find out. I think actually it's a great segue to one of the big takeaways that I saw from minicamp, Croc, and that's just how guys are lining up. And with the Jake Brendel injury, Spencer Burford was starting at right guard and Feliciano was starting at center. And then Feliciano got hurt too. So no Brendel, no Feliciano. So then it was Ben Barch, the veteran player. He was the number 3 center and working in with the ones without Feliciano, without Brendel at center. And then Nick Zakel and then Drake Nugent, the undrafted rookie, was. So now we're talking about 3, 4, 5 on the depth chart. And that's just the reality for a rookie in the NFL, Croc. Like you're not going to, like Eric Crocker didn't walk into the Jets and be like, oh, hey, I just got signed. Let me take reps at the ones, right? Like it just doesn't happen.
It definitely wasn't going to happen for me, but
like,
no, it doesn't happen.
Hey, Darrell, take a seat. Let me take this rep.
Yeah. Revis was holding out, and it's still like not Croc.
No, that's right. Yeah, there was not even a Revis Island, and you couldn't get involved.
No.
But yeah, there are. I mean, that is just a false statement. There are no rookies right now that are scheduled to start for the 49ers. Could it happen? Yes, most likely because of injury. I think Puni has an opportunity. He would have to beat out the veteran. Well, first of all, again, it would probably have to be an injury because then Feliciano moves over to center. Then he would have to beat out Spencer Burford at right guard. That would be Puni's path to starting.
How soon did Spencer Burford get first? I feel like Burford got his starting reps early, but was it training camp? Like as soon as he reported for training camp, he was the guy at right guard?
As a rookie? Yeah. So rookie year, I don't know if he was taking the first team reps right away, but that was it was him and Daniel Brunskill, right? That were at right guard.
I want to say he was taking them right away, but not right away. Like not OTAs, not minicamp. I think once they reported for training camp, I think he immediately took all the first team reps at right guard.
First team reps, and Brunskill was the backup. And then, yeah, you know what? Because he started the year as the starter, and then Brunskill started to work back in. Yeah. And actually, we've seen that now twice because that happened with Feliciano last year too. Burford was the starter. Feliciano started to creep back in and get more reps. And by the time it was late in the season, Feliciano was the starter, and Burford was the backup.
And I'm sure they, in that time, wanted Burford to, work his way in, take those next steps, but maybe he just didn't take quite the leap that they were looking for. And then it didn't help when Feliciano stepped in and graded out as one of the higher graded right guards in the NFL, or guards in general in the NFL.
All right, next, Croc. I want to talk about this kickoff, the new kickoff rules. It's something that can be pretty impactful for the NFL, and how, reading different reports from around the NFL and different special team coaches and how teams are treating it and how the 49ers are treating it. I think it's really interesting. Let's get into that next. All right, Croc. I did see some votes in the chat, by the way, for rookies getting playing time in Cody Schrader, the undrafted rookie running back. And look, man, Cody Schrader had a 2,000-yard rushing year. He led the SEC, I believe, in rushing last year, 1,600 rushing yards. Dude's a productive back, and running back is a position where, look, you might be a little small, a little slow on the stopwatch. But if you've got vision and you've got good feet and you know where to be and you can pass protect and you can do all the little things, you can earn yourself a role. So I'm not going to say that Cody Schrader cannot, but it's a pretty deep depth chart right now. And again, I think Cody Schrader probably need either just to be ridiculously good in the preseason to the point where the 49ers are like, we cannot put this guy on waivers because he's going to get claimed, or some injuries, right? To even to make a roster. And we know how few carries there are left after Christian McCaffrey. So even if you're the 2, the 3, you're not going to get snaps. And if you're the 4 or the 5, you're definitely not going to get snaps with the 49ers. And I don't think Schrader's a return guy either. So that's going to be an uphill battle for Cody Schrader. I would bet that it's a practice squad spot for him right now. Mason Pline, I think there's been pretty good reports for him as well as the undrafted tight end, former Hooper. But, we got to see the pads come on. We got to see what these guys look like in preseason. And if they show out big time in preseason, then maybe there's an opportunity to make the roster. But you got to make the roster first before you can get on the field. And you got to play special teams if you're at the back end of the roster. And so I don't know if either one of those guys fit there. Might be a lot of tight ends on the field, though, for kick returns, Croc. Because there's been talk around the league that's like, okay, this is going to be like straight up outside zone. It's a running play now as a kickoff unit, right? So maybe you want offensive linemen on the field, maybe a lot of tight ends. And if you have big people blocking, do you need big people on the coverage units as well? Or do you, if offensive line is going to be tough because you're spread out still, are you going to be too slow to get somewhere to get to your mark? And then, a DB can break through a gap and hit the returner before he has a chance to return. I don't know how much XFL you watch, Croc, and I know you have a sickness when it comes to sports. Have you paid close attention to the kickoffs in XFL and how you think it's going to look in the NFL?
I paid attention to it right away because I thought it was just unique looking. I'm like, I wonder if the NFL will adopt this. The NFL has stolen a lot of things from the XFL, even the original XFL. I think we're so used to seeing now the camera kind of like on that field hanging over. the offense or kind of giving you that back view. That view came from XFL. So I was curious to see what things they would steal. They definitely stole the kickoff. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be a lot easier to score than at least what it was for the XFL guys. Like I was watching some highlights and the guy cribbed it. This had to be about week 6, week 7. They were like, and there they go, the first return of the season. So it's not like guys were just cribbing kickoff returns left and right in the XFL. But I did like it from the standpoint of keeping guys safe. I love the fact that you're keeping the ball in play now. You get penalized for kicking it out of the back of the end zone. But I'm not sure that offensive lineman is going to work because although the guy is lined up about 5 yards away from you, offensive linemen, their lateral movement isn't going to be great. And now you have much more space to really have to maneuver with. Like, it's not just like, okay, let me stand here, get hands on this guy. If he blows by you, that's it. Like, you know, and guys have enough wiggle room, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have different like designs to kind of free guys up. I think it'd be kind of tough. And I'm pretty sure offensive linemen still have to kind of get back a little bit, set up. I think that might be tough for them.
Did you see what's going on in Kansas City? They're practicing with Justin Reed, safety. He's done some kicking, I think, before in NFL games or maybe in preseason games, kind of like their emergency kicker in Kansas City. And even another non-kicker they had practicing, because they said that in XFL games, 25 to 40% of returns, the kicker had to get involved in a tackle. And so the Kansas City Chiefs are looking at kickoff thinking, the kicking part's not as important as the tackling part for our kicker. And we don't even want Harrison Butker back there. We're going to put Reed back there. We're going to put a safety back there as our kicker who legitimately can kick. And we get an extra guy, an 11th player who can actually tackle. I thought that was fascinating. 49ers have had Mitch Wishnowsky trying some kickoffs. They've had Moody back there kicking off as well. The 49ers have been practicing kicking like squib type kicks. I saw a little video of it. I was listening to Guy Haberman, by the way, and because someone accused me and Guy Haberman of forcing the 49ers to pay Christian McCaffrey in some weird way. Like, guys, I don't have that kind of power, but I wanted to listen to Guy to be like, what was Guy saying about this, right? And he was talking a little bit about what he saw at Minicamp, and I've seen some video of some of the practice reps and stuff. But yeah, they're kind of kicking squibs down there to make it harder for the return man to pick up the ball, and now your coverage unit's that much closer. And if you're trying to run a run play, we know if Chris Foerster's involved, like how much timing's involved with the way the 49ers run the football. If they're trying to run some sort of an outside zone-ish type of a return play, and you screw up the timing on that because there's a bad kick and a squib kick and the returner can't pick up the ball, well, that messes up your entire return. So is that going to be one of the things that happens? And so it's just fascinating to me how many different ideas I've heard from different people around the league. Some people think it's going to be like home runs all day. There's going to be huge plays. Some people have said that it's 5 more yards than it was last year. They're just going to kick it over everybody's heads and nobody's going to care. And it's not going to matter at all. The league clearly wants to do this because they think it'll add more to the return game, be safer, and have more returns. So I can't wait to see what it actually looks like when they get on the field, if they're even showing anything in preseason games, because it feels like every special teams coordinator I've heard talk about it has a different angle, and all the angles kind of make sense in theory, but I don't know what to expect when it actually happens in reality.
I think I'm excited though. The one thing I do like about the NFL, and it's different than maybe some of the other leagues, I think I kind of see this with baseball when it goes past 9 innings. They start with the base runner on second base now. The NFL is very forward thinking, and they don't just stick to one thing because, well, we're the biggest cash cow in America when it comes to sports. We're just going to do what we do. Like, no, like how can we be innovative? How can we change things up? How can we try to keep guys safer? And maybe they've gone a little bit too far to some extent, but I think this right here adds a little bit more entertainment, at least for me.
And we've seen Debo return kicks before for the 49ers in big spots. If there's more big plays to be had and it's that much more valuable, I wonder if Debo will be back there more often. I would be shocked if Christian McCaffrey's back there for the 49ers returning kicks. Kyle Shanahan already talking about how he needs to limit his touches. We'll see if that's actually reality. Somebody asked about that in the chat. Rick said, do you really believe Kyle will bring Christian McCaffrey snap counts down that much? No, not really. I think it's easier to say that in June than it is when you're trying to win a football game in September.
He's already using CMC as a scapegoat. We have to try to save him from himself.
It's like, are you not the coach? You don't tell people who's in the game and who's not.
We got to save CMC from himself.
They just paid him more and they're going to give him the ball less. I don't know about that. I feel like the style of returner that's going to work, though, is a running back style returner, but with speed. So I'm not talking about 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I'm not talking about a power back necessarily, but someone that can break an arm tackle, that has a running back's vision, that can hit a hole, but has top speed to outrun people once they do break through that first line. Does that sound like a player on the 49ers? So who do you think is going to be like the right return guy for the 49ers? Because it might not be the same style of returner that worked in the past.
What you're explaining sounds like Deebo Samuel.
I think Deebo would be the ideal. Maybe the rookie Isaac Guerrero. Top end speed, 4.3 speed. He's a bigger guy. I don't think he's going to be that involved in the offense. But if
I'm curious to see if he could change direction.
Does that count as a starter, a rookie starter? I might put money on Isaac Guerrero if he returns the first kickoff of the year for the 49ers.
He can't. How good is his change of direction? How well can he make guys miss in space? Those are things that I'm interested to see. But just from an ability standpoint of just run, if it's more like you said, more of an outside zone type return, I think he'd do well.
Yeah, maybe Elijah Mitchell. Maybe just go backup running back in that case. And he's a guy that can hit the put his foot in the ground and hit that outside zone, right? If that's the style of returner. And maybe just speed still. Maybe it's Cowing. Pearsall has returned punts in his day. I don't know about kickoffs. I think they've put a lot of different guys out there returning those kickoffs in camp for the 49ers. So it could be a number of guys. It's fascinating. I can't wait to see how it turns out. I don't have any answers. I have more questions than answers as far as the kickoff goes. And I hope it's something. I hope it's not the thing where they show up in week 1 and they just start kicking it over everyone's heads out of the end zone. They'll be like, all that for nothing. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Real quick, this is like a trial season, right? Like it's not set in stone. Is it one of those things kind of like the pass interference reviews where it was like a rule, then it's like, do away with it.
I think it's exactly like that. If it's good, it'll stick. And if it's a disaster, it'll be gone real quick. But it's going to be I think the worst thing that could happen is there's too many good returns, because you don't want it to change the game that much. You don't want kickoffs to matter that much. You want them to matter more than they do, but you don't want them to change games every single week either. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments, on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and Amazon Fire. Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Subscribe to the Eric Crocker YouTube channel, my other YouTube channel, and of course, Croc and I back every single day. What we do here. There's some comments in the chat about Eric Crocker's well-shaved dome. Looking good, Croc. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen right here. Locked On 49ers. Back next time.